Welcome, everyone. Um, I'm excited for this particular conversation I'm having with an important member of our community by the name of Sheila Kasasa. Sheila Kasasa, she's an amazing woman. She is multifaceted in terms of she's an entrepreneur, she's a social entrepreneur as well. She's part of the leadership of the DC Youth Corps. She's passionate about fashion. She's involved with the DC African Chamber of Commerce. She's passionate about young people, and she's just all about amazing things. So I was recently at a conference, Sheila, and I listened to the amazing story that you shared. And storytelling is a very important work that we do at Go Global Inc. And you spoke about the inspiration for what you do, and I was wondering if you can share with our community your story leading to what you do now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Benga, for that introduction. It's always amazing hanging out with you because you always just bring such great energy and confidence to people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So a little bit about my story. It's very unique. So I was actually born in Uganda. As you know, I'm Ugandan American, but I like to say I'm African American, literally. But yeah, so I was born in Uganda and actually migrated over here when I was about 6.
Mm.
And what's unique about my story is I grew up watching my mother build her business, and she has multiple businesses. But the older I got, the more I realized there was a pattern to this, right? And so as I started asking questions, I always knew my grandmother was this amazing woman, but to me, my closest step to my grandmother was my mother. And so fast forward 14, I go back to Uganda and we're in these apartment buildings. And I'm just like, whose are these? And they're like, oh, your grandmother owns them. I'm like, wait a minute, something's not adding up here. I was like, my grandmother? They're like, yeah. And so I started, practicing my Luganda and building up the confidence to talk to, my grandmother, like just one-on-one, just her and I. As a young person transitioning into adulthood, I'm here at 14, trying to find myself. I had the most beautiful conversation with my grandmother. And so, get this, what's so interesting about her stories, come to find out, so I already knew my mother had 10, there are 10 of them, right? So she grew up with 10 siblings, 9 siblings. And so when I started talking to my grandmother, I found out that growing up, she went up to second grade because girls couldn't go to school then. So she just happened to get lucky and made it to second grade, and ended up having 10 kids. And as a single mother, she was raising 10 kids. I don't know if you know a little history about Uganda, but there are a few wars that happened. And during those wars, my grandmother had to flee. So she fled with all 10 of her kids, and during the wars, she lost some of her siblings and cousins. So she ended up tagging on 5 more kids, running around in the jungles of Uganda with 15 kids. Now, this incredible woman to this day has actually founded 3 different businesses. So she founded one of the first and largest brick factories in Uganda. And now she's actually also in commercial and residential real estate.
Wow.
She also founded a restaurant. And mind you, this woman has a second grade education,
Wow.
10 kids, 5 orphans, and had time to open up an orphanage as well. So she also has a fully functioning orphanage.
Wow.
And what does that speak to me? To me, I grew up watching my mother, and I could never figure out her inspiration and how she got started. And it finally clicked. All the dots started clicking. I'm like, wait a minute. My grandmother did this. 0 to no education. My mother owns 2 assisted living homes in Montgomery County, and they're all full. All full, and she has staff who actually one of her, somebody on her team just bought a new car, bought a new house. And it's insane just starting to also connect the dots of how entrepreneurship has created the conversation of workforce development, right? How this African woman in Uganda created businesses that have taken people within her community out of poverty, right? And now fast forward to my mother's created businesses that have taken recent immigrants and local residents of Montgomery County out of the low income tier, because now they're all middle class, right? My mother went to school to be a middle school teacher, and she's now a businesswoman. So that conversation of realizing that they didn't necessarily receive the right entrepreneurship education. So where did this aha moment happen for them to be able to say, I'm going to start these businesses and they're going to be successful? And now we get to me and my story. And so back to 14, I'm trying to figure out everything, and it's just my personality. Everyone used to laugh at me, like, you always want to save the world, you always want to, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just going to save everyone. And so I went to school to do international relations, and I did work in South Africa, did work in Israel, I did work in Guatemala, and with all that work, and I kept finding out that minorities, people of color within each community, you can always go to where they say it's poverty, they're never going to succeed. Those are always the most entrepreneurial communities. Have you ever seen somebody in the street and you're like, okay, they're selling water, but it's making sense. 90 degrees outside, they're on the corner selling water. Entrepreneur by nature, right? Or you go somewhere and it's like a flea market and it's full of these women with different mangoes and avocados, and you're just like, entrepreneurship. Everywhere I kept seeing was this idea that our nature was to be entrepreneurs without education, right? So it got me thinking, maybe I should teach people entrepreneurship education. What would happen if you gave the women selling mangoes entrepreneurship education? What would happen, right? So fast forward, I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm just like, I think I need a life coach. I'm everywhere because I was trying to help everyone, right? And it was driving me insane because I'm enjoying it, but it was also literally a moment of insanity with helping everyone. I was also losing a little bit of myself, and I didn't know how to package everything, right? And when I say losing a little bit of myself, it meant losing myself financially, right? What does it take to network, right? What does it take to assist all these people? There's a cost associated with that, right? And also not knowing exactly what you want to do is a little bit tricky, right? So you get pulled into so many different directions, right? So that also turns into time management. I'm losing time. There's no more hours in the day for me to help others, and therefore their businesses are also failing. So how do I juggle all these businesses, my time, myself financially, and also being a millennial, right? And I was really excited to hear that you're starting your program, and I was just like, okay, this is perfect, this is amazing. I can now learn how to take my ideas and my vision and find a way to incorporate them. And so I went through your program. It was amazing because you taught us in a way that took us from professional to personal to being, right? So wrapping that all into one, right? How to handle yourself financially, how to handle your wellness, your mental being to be able to do your work, right? How to put together your professional brand, right? Everything from LinkedIn to your resumes, how to tell your story. So by the time I was done with your program, I literally felt comfortable and confident enough to then express myself to the world. Like, no. All I did was take the regular me, my purpose me, and I learned how to package it better. So it's an efficient me, right? And the more I think about it, it was funny. It's probably like months after taking your accelerator course that I went to, you had a workshop. And I got the email to go to your workshop, and I'm just like, okay, let me make time for this. And I was really busy, and I almost missed it, and I actually made it. And a young lady goes up during your workshop to tell her story. And her story forced me to have my aha moment by accident.
Wow.
By accident. And what does that mean? She was talking about her family experience and, you know, what she went through and how it's affected who she is. And I was just like, wait, that sounds similar to my story. And I'm just like taking notes. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing this wrong. I want to be helping young people. I want to start backwards and move forwards, right? Because young people keep getting left out of the conversation, right? And they go through all these trials and errors, and then they're full adults and they're like, I wish I started my business. I wish I learned this earlier. I wish. So how do you help the I wish before the I wish has an opportunity to wish, right? So that's actually how the concept of DC Youth Corps was born. And I know we'll get into it a little bit, but that's a little bit about my story and who I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you for sharing that.
No, of course. Thank you.
Great.